Everyone. Be, do, have. It's not the typical progression we go through, yet it's a progression that could lead to a lot more. And today I have on Monday Mindset Mastery, my guest is Heather Jones, and we're going to talk about be, do, have, and how it's a lot different from when I do this, I'm going to have that, and I will be happy or be wealthy or be successful. Because most of us have spent our lives with that, and it doesn't work all that well. So, hi, Heather. How are you?
Good. How are you, Lori?
I am doing great today. So, I am excited because this is the first week we're actually doing this live on YouTube, and it'll be on YouTube every week. And I'm really excited about that. So,
Very cool. That's awesome.
yes. So, Heather, you have been a coach, a personal growth facilitator for a while. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah. Thanks for asking. Yeah, I'll share like how I kind of got started, like really the Cole's Notes version, because I feel like this development journey or this personal development journey, gosh, there's like many stops along the way. And it's just about like really being patient with yourself. So I I started back in like 2006 was the first time I ever walked in or did anything that would have been related to personal development. At that time in my life, I wasn't in a really good spot. I would say that I was even experiencing suicidal thoughts. I didn't really know where to go with my life. And so I entered this program because my family said that I should, right? And so I entered this program and I did end up learning a lot about myself, a lot about the ways that I needed to be something like, or I needed to have something in order to have this state of happiness, or I didn't believe that I was deserving or worthy of that. And so it sent me down this path of wanting to know more just about how do I achieve happiness? How do I feel fulfilled? Because it seemed like no matter what I did or no matter what I attained, is that I never reached it. And so I moved in actually along with that company. I started working for the company in 2012, and then I had an opportunity in 2003 to purchase the company. And so I've been training in facilitation since way back like 2013. And so it just seemed like a natural progression for me to purchase the company. So now really the program or programs that I would contribute to saving my life or creating this mindset shift from it's not about what I have or it's not about what I do, but it's about who I am. That really stepped in and saved my life. So now I'm a couple of years in of the program being mine and I'm continuing to facilitate it. And my goal is to really have as much impact and reach as I can to support like humanity.
It's the first part of Heather's program, and it was amazing. And I love the fact that I think there's so many of us. I know all my clients, and even for the longest time myself, were stuck in just trying to, we all want to be happy or we all want to be joyful. We all want to be satisfied. And you spend all your life trying to do more things. And you always think like, when I do this, I'll be happy, and it's always in the future. And it's like tomorrow, tomorrow
Yep.
never gets here because it's never tomorrow.
Mhm.
And so many people think, they have so much. And on paper, it looks like I should be happy. I should be amazing. Look at all the stuff I have. Look at all the stuff I've done. And yet they're empty inside and they feel like it's them because there must be something wrong with me because I'm not happy.
Yeah.
So talk about that a little bit.
Well, what I say to my students oftentimes is that I feel like we're kind of sold this societal goal or view of the way things should be, right? Because if you think about it, when we're young and we're in high school, we just think I just need to get through high school, right? It's like the society tells me I need to get through high school, and then after high school, it's like, well, you need to go to college, you need to get a degree, right? It's like this societal scripting that's on us from the beginning. And so who we are or who we give ourselves permission to be is on hold until we reach these, right? And so it does take a mindset shift to start looking at life in a way of it's like I get to be that now, right? Because then after college is like then it's I need to get married, right? Or get the job and then get
Job, get the
married.
husband or wife, yeah, the 2.4 kid.
Right. Then the children come next. And I found myself in 2006. My son was born in 2008, so I wasn't quite a mom yet. But even I was still learning this as I was like going through parenting, right? And so I even remember a time where I'm now like, I have my son, it's like I'm getting things going in life, have my career. And then the next thing is I'm just like, okay, well, I guess that happiness comes, or I guess that I get permission to be me when he goes to school, because then that's going to free up a lot of time. Right. And so as I'm going through this process, I'm like, when does this cycle end? Right. Because every stage is a new stage of growth and development. And so I found myself wishing for my son to start school so then I would have more time to just be me, rather than this idea of why can't I be me, or give myself permission to be all the things I want to be in my life right now. Right. And so that's where the mindset shift is, because we just think it's like we need to achieve something. It's like, so some people, it's about the degree. It's like, I need to get this college degree and then I get to do this career. So then I get to be happy. That was the same thing with college or for high school for me. Right. Or sometimes we switch it the other way, and that I think that we need to do something first. So we need to do the career. We need to do the training. Right. So if there's any athletes, it's like, I need to just do all this training, because then I get to have the awards that come with that, or I get to have the status that comes with that. So then I get to be happy. Right. And so when in one of the fundamentals of the program that we start is that it actually, those words are misarranged. The words need to be first about be. So first is be, give yourself permission just to be whatever it is that you want, whatever it is, like as far as happiness or fulfillment, or maybe it is a career role. So be everything that it requires to be that person. And then you do. So do everything that's in alignment with the be. So if it's about, I want to be happy, so then your choices are going to align with what is happiness for you. Right. And then you get to have the happiness. You get to have that. Right. And so we rearrange the words.
It's a big shift, a mindset shift. But when you do that, what's really cool about it is it's coming from within. Because I know, and what I teach my clients is, if you're not happy, if you're not successful, if you're not satisfied, it's because you're looking for it outside. And if
Yeah.
you're looking for it outside, you're never going to find it. You have to find it inside first.
Yeah.
So that being allows you to find, to be who you are, and to really set that intention to be, what you want to be. So even if you don't like the who you are right now, when you accept that, you can set the intention that I am going to be this,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is. So I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, like you brought up a great point, is this idea of external validation. It's right. It's like we look for something outside of ourselves to also give us permission, right? And we miss that we are to give ourselves the permission ourselves, right? So it's like it could be that we seek approval, like typically myself, my natural nature in like when I was in before I should say I started doing this work, my natural nature was in this people pleasing mode, right? And so I would look for others validation outside of me. I would look for others in order for me to see that they're happy or that they approve of me, in order for them to me to allow to reflect that in on myself. And the thing is that I don't have any control over these factors that are outside of myself. But we spend so much time, or have spent so much time, seeking for some form of external validation to give ourselves just permission to be ourselves.
Yeah, that happened. That happened to me in a job, and my career. I was getting my fulfillment, my satisfaction, my success from my career, and and that we think it's secure, and then in a second that can change. A boss changes, you lose your job, and suddenly, if you
Right.
don't have that inside you, you feel like, okay, well, I'm back to nothing. It's like it's very,
Mhm.
and you're not.
Yeah.
Everything you've done, you're still you, you're still the same person, but when that comes from outside, it's amazing how much it affects how you think about yourself.
Yeah. Like, look at COVID, for example. How many people went through COVID? And it's like everyone's world, or should have been, everyone's world was flipped upside down. And so some
Mhm.
people who identified with a career and no longer had that career, no longer had that external source of validation, right? So now they're just left with, who the heck am I? Right? I work with a lot of women, a lot of moms, and this is so typical, not just necessarily like it's common, it happened with COVID, but it's so typical for women in their middle ages when their children are going off to college, going off and like they're leaving the nest, so to speak, right? So then now it's like, who am I really, right? Like, because it's like, again, they looked for their children, they needed to do the parenting or they needed to have the children, right? Rather than just giving themselves permission, you know? So I use the analogy all the time in the classroom is that we identify with our roles, right? And so if you think of a fruit bowl, so if you think of like a bowl that has a bunch of fruit in it, those are the roles that we have. So like our children might be the apple, or the banana might be our career. But we go through stages in our life where all of a sudden the fruit are no longer in the bowl. And we miss that we are the fruit bowl. We are the container that holds it all rather than the rules that are in our life. And so this be, do, have is about being the fruit bowl. It's about coming to be that and really learn to identify with what that is.
Seems like that has a lot to do with, yeah, I love that analogy, but it has a lot to do with self-acceptance. Like you talk about this roles. I often do an exercise with my clients where I ask them, like, okay, rank yourself as a mother, rank yourself as an employee, rank yourself as a business owner, rank
Mhm.
yourself as a wife. And they use, on a scale of 1 to 10, on some of them they're maybe a 10, but they're not 10 on everything. There's always
Yeah.
places, but then I asked them, okay, rank yourself the day you were born, on being perfect. And everyone always says the day I was born is a 10. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, let's say you put yourself on this desert island and you're no longer a mother, you're all by yourself and you're not a mother, not an employee, you're not a wife. Rank yourself. And it's amazing how
Mm.
some people still can't say a 10. And it's like, well, how
Wow.
could you not be a 10 when you were a 10 and you were born? It's not you, you're still perfect. It's the roles. So I think that
Yeah.
that being that container seems like it really is an area of being happy and being satisfied that you're enough and that you are perfect, whoever you are and wherever you are, and that your roles don't define you. They're
Yeah.
just things you do.
Yeah, I love that exercise. That's such a great exercise to put it into perspective about really who you are, but how do you define yourself or how you see yourself, right? It's a really
Yeah,
beautiful way of doing that.
yeah, definitely. So I love personal growth. If I could get paid to do nothing but take personal growth classes, I would like have the ideal job. I haven't found out how to do that yet. But it amazes me when I hear that less than 10% of the population ever invest or even thinks about their personal growth, because I feel like the more I do it, the more I need, and the more I know I have to learn more. Owning a personal growth company, tell us a little bit about that experience too, I guess.
It's really interesting, like, because I actually didn't know the stat that it's less than 10% can
That's
see
what I've
themselves.
heard, yeah, that they say
Yeah.
less than 10%.
Well, and that doesn't surprise me because it reminds me of Alan Deutschman's book, Change or Die. Have you read that book?
I have not read it, but I have heard of it.
So, great book where he basically talked about that if people will not change by force or facts, right? So it's like if you have any kind of force or facts, like so for I was actually like felt I would joke and say I was forced to go to the first program that I have. But it's like that isn't enough in order for people to change. And so when people would look at some form of personal development is they could look at that there's facts that they don't want to see or acknowledge, right? But when you can flip that around, and when you can, what Alan Deutschman says is that in order for people to create change, is that they need to go through this process where they can repeat a behavior over and over again, right? And this is applicable for a mindset shift too, right? Because how often do people think, oh, I need to change my mindset or change XYZ, and I just need willpower or discipline, right? And so what Alan Deutschman's work says is that that's not the case, is that you need to be able to repeat the behavior over and over again. You need to be able to reframe the current set of beliefs that you have in such a way that they're more supportive. And then you need to be able to have people that you can relate to, right? And so people need to understand that they're not alone in this process or journey. And so a lot of what my program does is we actually focus on bringing those 3 R's into the process, right? And so we work with repeating a new behavior again and again. We work on reframing beliefs. So it's like we gotta create awareness on what is it that I believe about myself and the world around me, that creates this unfulfilling or unworthy or not deserving experience, right? Because we all have adopted the belief system somehow, some way, right? And then we have this relate process where we're all in it together, we're all doing it together. And so the program really is focused on that. We have a lot of different themes or like strategies inside of that process, but it's all for the purpose of someone who's ready to essentially meet themselves, right? And meet why they tick. And so it's like we never got an owner's manual for life. We never got, there was no glove box when you
And
came into this world.
unfortunately, our
No,
parents didn't either, so it makes it even
right.
worse.
Parents didn't either, is that we didn't get that. And so what the program can offer is your owner's manual to life, to understand why you tick. Why is it that you do what you do? When you do X, why does Z happen, or why does Z reaction come, right? Is really what we focus on, because the more that you learn about yourselves, the more that you can feel empowered and in control of life's events as they're coming.
And relating to the concept of being, I mean, first, I guess it's the acceptance that I'm going to be myself. And then, okay, now that I am, I've accepted that.
Yeah.
Okay, now that I am being myself, who am I? And really
Right.
discovering that, because that then will direct your actions, and that will direct your, what you do and what you have based on knowing, okay, I am going to be me. I'm going to set this
Yeah.
intention. So how do I then get from one place to the other?
Well, and part of the program as well is like, okay, so great. I'm going to be me, but what's that? What does me mean? Like, who's the fruit bowl? Like, how do I identify with who I am? Right. And so that's why like our part 2 of our journey is all about the idea of, I don't know who that person is, but I'm going to go in and find out. I'm going to discover that person. And so by the time our participants will leave a level 2 experience, is they have an expanded version of themselves, right? So how do you explain to somebody how to ride a bike without a bike? Like how does somebody then embody this experience of riding a bike? Right. And so the second part to this journey is about that. So some people might be thinking, yeah, this is great in theory, but who am I? Who do I get to be? Right. And so that's part of the process is to be able to, we give each student an experience of themselves from a context they never even imagined. Right.
I love that. And I love the fact that this is a face-to-face program, because I think Zoom is great, and I love being online. It definitely opens up possibilities. Yet to really have something experiential, it's hard to do it without actually being there. I mean, that's kind of why I'm focusing a lot on retreats, because I feel like you're there at a retreat. You get to truly experience things and learn so much more from that. So
Yeah.
being in that safe container, being with other people
Well, and even
is
think of it as a closed container, right? So think of it as a closed container, and even when like a retreat is like a closed container. And so when we have closed containers, if you think of food, everything multiplies, right? And so you have that experience more and more and more, so that when you leave the retreat or you leave a program, is that it's so much easier to step into this be experience of yourself.
When we first started to, you talked a little bit about the shoulds, and I love the fact we all think that there's this set of rules that we have to follow, these rules that someone made for us. And I often wonder, like, who was that first person who made up these amazing rules and told us what we should do? But it's interesting because the rules really, they're not for anyone. Like, and so many people do all the, I should do this or I should do this. I had a client just last week who was telling me, like, oh, I feel like I'm a failure because I should be further ahead in my career. It's like, who said you should be? You're exactly where you're supposed to be. So tell us a little bit about how we all should, and how that really just keeps us from being who we are because we're so worried about who we should be.
Yeah. Well, a should would be an example of what I would call a false choice. It would, like we talk about false choices or choices in general in the second part of our program. But when we want to should on ourselves, is what we're telling ourselves is that there's some kind of experience that is telling us where we should be. Likely it's a past experience, right? And so oftentimes I find that it comes down to like family values, family traditions, family culture that has set out this path for all of us in a certain way, right? And so when we're pulling from these should experiences, we're pulling from our past experiences. So if you think of the point that you learned a belief, is like most of our belief system has been in place since the ages of 5 to 12, they say, right? And so is that when we are still in this experience of I should do this or I have to do this, we're pulling from the point that that belief or that idea or thought was created. And so we're really consulting our, let's say, be generous and say our 12-year-old self in that moment, right? And so our 12-year-old self doesn't have a big picture of the way we are now today. And so that is an example of really living in the past, or possibly even living in the future, because when you do the XYZ, then you get to, that's the where you're putting the do or the have first, right? If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so it's really what it comes down to is this, Lori, you had said self-acceptance. So it comes down to this experience of self-acceptance, but also trusting that you were, so I'm a believer of a higher power. And so I believe that I have been given all of the tools that I need in order to succeed in this life right now as I have them. And so I know that I'm learning more tools as it comes, but I know that I'm right where I'm supposed to be. And I trust in that I'm just right where I'm supposed to be, because I wouldn't have come unequipped. I don't believe I would have come here unequipped.
Yeah. No, yeah. And I even, yeah, I'm a believer in, for me, it's God, but definitely a higher power. And I don't know how people can, trying to do it alone without that belief is so hard. But there's a meditation I do called Faith Over Fear. What's interesting is it talks about, like people always say, oh, have faith, but we feel like faith is something, we have or we get, or it's like, but it's really not. Faith is something you have to choose. You have to make that decision every day that I believe I'm exactly where I'm going to be. I trust that I'm here for a reason, and this is where I'm meant to be. If I wasn't, I would be somewhere else. I would be someone else. And having that, that trust that, I trust that this is what I'm meant to be makes all the difference. Because if you're exactly where you're meant to be, you have to be there. You don't really get a choice. It is your choice to be there, but that's where you're meant to be. So
Yeah, like, and a lot of what we even do and focus inside of our program, and I think any personal development program, is the acknowledgement that the hardest experiences that we've gone through in life, down the road, they actually do turn out to be the greatest gifts, right? And so it's about trusting in that, trusting that the turmoil that we're experiencing is that there is a greater and higher purpose for that, right? And so it is faith, trust, self acceptance, whatever is on your radar as far as your belief system is one of those, it will help and support.
I remember when I first took the first part of your program, you talked about how, the basic programs came from, was based on, was it Viktor Frankl a little bit, and the idea of the Holocaust survivors, and that
Yeah.
The big issue was that the choice that they accepted where they were
Yeah.
and they trusted that's where they'd be. And then they chose, well, I can't change this, so I'm going to choose how I deal with it. And that's like really important. I think that, where you are is where you are. And if you accept that and you're open to it, then you have choices what you do next.
Yeah, the program was created by a man by Alexander Everett, so we should credit him as well. Alexander Everett, who designed the program in the 60s, and actually the program was originally called Mind Dynamics, which is interesting with the talk here today. But he wanted to answer the question: is why did some people survive Auschwitz and some people didn't? And so what he discovered, and Viktor Frankl did a really great job in his book Man's Search for Meaning, is when he said that you can strip everything from a human being except for their right or their freedom to choose how they feel in any given moment. And it's a beautiful testament to we actually do have the full control of how we want to experience life. And it comes down to the form of our attitude. And so if our attitude is not great or negative, that you can link that back to a negative belief that you have about yourself or the world around you that is contributing to that.
And like I know in my book, The Reinvention Mindset, I looked at people who had horrible things to happen to them, and some of them are so happy.
Yeah.
And then you look at other people who have little, something bad happen and they let it fester for years. And it
Yeah.
really is a choice to choose that I'm going to be happy no matter what. I'm going to be joyful and loving no matter what and grateful. And then, my life will just be better because I am that to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah. That is exactly it. That's exactly it.
Well, we are coming to a close here. So I know you have a master class or something coming up soon, Heather.
I do. I have one coming up on June 2nd. So June 2nd, it's a Monday. And in this masterclass is I speak more or dive deeper into the be, do, have. And I look deeper into what is it that creates our motivation. And that links back to be, do, have to be able to support. It's if I can adjust my motivation rather than being motivated from pain, loss, or fear, is if I could flip that to be motivated by love, contribution, and mission, is then it's like that's what would be like the fuel to like set someone through. So we're doing that on June 2nd.
Sounds good. And we will put the links in the comments on all the platforms probably later today or tomorrow. We'll get those up there. I just want everyone to know I am still hosting a Plunge into Possibilities retreat this September, which is going to be amazing. If you're feeling burnt out or you just lost that sense of adventure and you really want to get that joyful experience back, get that excitement, it's the perfect place. We're going to transform you from where you are today. I mean, it's a transformational experience. So I'll put the information about that, or you can email me, contact me on any of these platforms to get more information. Heather, before we leave, if there is one thing you'd like to leave the audience with, can you please feel free to share your final thoughts?
I feel like I already said it and I'll say it again. It's one of my favorite quotes from Viktor Frankl is that you can be stripped of all of your everything that you have. But the one thing that the world or people they can't take from you is your right or your freedom to choose how you feel about any given moment. That is always yours. You always have the choice to decide how it is that you feel. So have a look at that.
So beautiful and something to definitely remember.
Yeah.
Powerful. Well, thank you so much, Heather. This was fantastic. I love
Thank
having this
you.
conversation.
Yeah, it was a great conversation. Thanks for having me, Lori.
And next week, our guest is going to be William Tate, and we are going to be talking about purposeful leadership. So please stock back next Monday to talk about personal leadership. I know it's a holiday in the US, but you can listen to it live or you can watch the recording. So thank you, everyone, and I hope you all have a fantastic day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.